Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the School Manager. In this series of trainings, we are going to be creating a brand new School Manager application from complete scratch. It's going to look a little bit something like this. We've got a lot to cover. I can't wait. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining us today. We've got a fantastic training. I'm going to be creating something very similar to this. This is a sample where we've got multi-tab. This is going to be a multi-part training. We have so much to cover, but we're going to start from an empty workbook, and I'm going to take you through every single step. It's going to come complete with a dashboard, students, teachers, scheduling, classes, exam, transaction, notifications, admin, and a whole lot more, because it's going to be based on your suggestions, your comments, your feedback, and your ideas. Everything. I'm going to give it a good start today. We're going to continue on, so your participation is really critical in this series. I've had a ton of requests for a school manager, so it's about time I get it. We're going to get started today, but before I do that, I want to make sure that you do get subscribed. So just click on that notification and icon bell below. That'll ensure that you get the trainings each and every week. And we're going to be working on this school manager for a while now, so it's going to be a really great training. We're going to start from scratch. If you do like these trainings, I've got a brand new application 175 workbook zip file that I think you would love. That means 175 of my best workbooks. It's on sale now for just $66. So it's got a complete library, a single click to open the workbook, single click to go to the YouTube video. Really convenient. That's really low cost right now, so I hope you get that. We've got a lot to cover. Like I said, I'm going to create this school manager from scratch. Don't worry. We're going to go over every step, but it's going to look something like this. Hopefully when we get it, we're going to go so every step you're going to see, every line of code, every format, every mistake, every bug. I'm going to walk you through it on my thought process. So let's get started. We've got a lot to cover in this training. I don't want to waste much time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close this one out. This is a sample, so no need to keep this. We'll save it, any changes we made. And then what we'll do is we'll create a brand new file. This is going to be great for any level of Excel because we're going to go over it. So I'm going to create a new file. First thing I'm going to do is save it. Always want to save it, and we're going to save it as, what do we want to do? We want to save it as an XLSM file. That's going to be for macros, XLSM file. I'm going to choose the folder here. I've got a school manager. Part one, let's just go ahead and get rid of this. This is not going to be a sample file. This will be the actual one. This is going to be a free download, so I'll include the links down in the description below. Yes, it's part one. We're going to be a multi-part. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to save these first two columns. This is going to be sheet one. Let's go ahead and add some sheets in right now. So we do want an admin sheet, so I'm going to call that sheet one admin. We're not going to work on that too much today. We're going to work on this sheet two. That's going to be students. So the second one, we're going to go with students, and this is the one we're going to focus on today, but we're also going to have teachers. I want to hold teachers, and then of course we are going to have schedule, and then classes schedule. We want to also have classes, right? I want to organize classes, and the schedule is going to be great. I've got a day view, week view, month view plan, so really going to be cool with drag and drop scheduling. You won't want to miss any video in this series. Okay, we also want to create exams, quizzes, tests. Got to have that and be able to do that. And also I want to make sure we have transactions too. Transactions would be really cool to have. Transactions could be fees from students. It could be also expenses. It could be payroll from teachers. So having a whole transaction is going to allow us to do that. So we'll call that transactions. And also I want notifications. I want to be able to notify students, teachers, etc. Notifications. So we can have that, so we can notify them by email. And of course a dashboard, right? I want a dashboard. All right, dashboards are going to combine all those reports. It's going to be cool. And then of course we'll start with it. We're going to have a lot of databases, but it's going to hold all of our information. So we'll call this students database, okay? Or student, let's just call it student database. Okay, so we have student database. We're primarily going to focus today on our students. Okay, so students is what we want to do. I want to be able to have a first two columns. Let's go ahead and with the first two columns, just going to go down. That's going to be for admins. So I'm going to color them a little bit differently. This screen, I'm just going to color them, let's say green or something like that. We're going to go with a gray background this time, or actually a dark black background. So let's do that right now. I'm going to create C. I want this first row to be our title. We're going to call that school manager. So we'll go all the way across here. And then I'm going to give it just a standard color here. I'm going to give it we're going to go with a flat look this time, not a faded look, something a little bit different. And just, so let's go ahead and put in the fill, maybe this second color black here. That looks good. It's not entirely black, but gray. And then we'll go with the font of bold and white on that. So that'll be good if we get to stand out. Okay, I'll create a title on this, and we're going to make it a lot bigger. I'm going to call it School Manager, caps, School Manager. Okay, hopefully not too many misspellings, but I'm sure that'll happen. I'm going to drop this down. We're going to be doing a lot of formatting in the beginning. I like the font. Let's go with something like Sans. Maybe I think I like Comic Sans. Comic Sans is kind of a cool little font. Not Vomit, Comet Sans. There we go. That's the one I want. Okay, I like the size, maybe about 28. Make sure it's big, and it's already bold, I think. So we'll take a look, not 238. 28, good. That's nice, but I want to center that maybe between, let's say, C and L or D and L, something like that. I want to have C. I want to actually have C as our, this is going to be for our menu here. We're probably going to not make us, so let's actually move this over. I'm going to copy that and put it right about here. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. That's what I want there, because I'm going to put the menu here so we can delete the font there. So basically, I want this column to be for our menu. And so we'll center this perhaps between D and L, and then I'll make these columns. Okay, so we got some icons due. We're going to add those a little bit later on. So here I want the menu. Now this menu is going to be consistent for every single sheet. So every single sheet that we're going to have a visual is going to have that same menu. And so we're going to make it black, but I'm not going to use a cell-based menu. I'm going to use perhaps a shape-based menu, because that way we have a lot more flexibility with our rows and columns. So this is going to have our menu column C. So every sheet's going to have a column C, and then we're going to do menu. For the rest, I'm just going to simply color this, maybe a gray color, so we can get a nice background, something a little bit, we'll call this a flat design. And I'm going to go with here. And the rest of this, we can actually color everything with this, but this is going to be black. I'm going to color this black, right? But so I want to give it that black color, which is going to be the same consistent color throughout this one. Okay, however, our menu is going to be shape-based menu. So basically, this is going to be our title of so this is our title of the application, while this is the title of our sheet. So let's put in a sheet title here in D, and we're going to call this, let's say, call it students, right? This is going to be our students section. So students, I'm going to go with the same font, and I'm going to use an accent color. So let's add this a little bit bigger font, but so we'll do about 22 on this one, 22. And I'm going to merge and center this across also through L, all the way through L, and we'll make those bigger a little bit. Okay, also I'm going to add, again, Comic Sans is going to be our comic for our titles, and then I want to give this an accent color. So something, let's say probably like blue, maybe not this blue, actually the font color. We'll go with, I've got some icons that are pretty much the similar, but I want to use something like this blue here, or this blue here, that blue. Okay, good. So I've got that. We'll bold it. So now we've got our students, and what I want to do here, basically, I want to be able to select a student. So I'm going to keep column D. D is going to be a spacer column, right? We don't want our forms hugging the left menu just like that. We always want to have a nice little spacer. That way we can always control exactly where it's going to be. So we'll use column D as our spacer. So we're going to start it out in, I guess, here we'll probably put select students. So select, here we're going to select the students. So we want this above it. So that way in column F, they will actually be able to select which student they have, and then it'll load here. Then I want several tabs here. I also want a spacer. Now here's the beauty of having a shape-based menu here, because I can then make this, like this one, I want to make this one smaller, maybe about 6.75, just a little spacer. This one can be standard at, I believe, what's 15. Okay, so then I want to have some tabs. So I want general, info. These are going to be cell-based tabs. That means when you click on a cell, it's going to switch. So the first tab or section is going to be general info. Then I want fees and payments. I want to know what fees or payments the student has made, or what fees. So I want how that could change technically as far as the name, but pretty much I want all the transactions based on a student there. I want to know their attendance. So attendance, I want to know what classes they're attending, when, and all. So attendance, I want to put that there. learn how to spell that. Next up, I also want to know any exams, quizzes, or tests that they've taken recently, so exams. And then I want to create an ID card. So I want to put an ID card here, ID card. There we go. So we'll make those all about the same width. So they should all be probably right around 14. So I'll do that right now, give or take, a few. So we'll make that a little bit bigger. It'll spread it out. There we go. That gives us some space so we know what we're doing. Okay, continuing on. Let's see. This one's going to need to be a little bit bigger. All right, so what do I want to do? I want to give all of these a single color. And then what I want to do is, based on selection, I want to change that color. So we're going to format those cells. And then we'll go into the fill and then fill effects. And then I'll select two colors. Very similar to our color here. So I'll do a fade from maybe a medium to a little bit darker black, just something very, very slight. And I want it to be dark enough so that when I have the font, I want the font to be in white. Then based on conditional formatting, it will change. So I'm going to make it probably just actually not bold. We'll just go with regular and white, but we will bold the selected. And what I mean by that, okay, click OK. And I guess we can center that. Okay. All right. So that's what I want. So the idea is here, when you select a tab, the color changes, and we can actually add a border around that too. So why don't we add a border so that we can separate those easily? I'm going to add a white border. So the color is going to be white, and we'll go with an inside border on all of those and click OK. Good. That's what we got. Now again, we'll center that here, and we get an idea of what the tabs are going to look like. All right, and then we'll put in on the general information, we'll put first name and information here, and then we can have that. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is I want to create this general tab, but I want to have that tab displayed based on a conditional formatting. So we want to know the selected tab. So I'm going to put that right here. I'm going to put in the selected tab column, okay? Because I want to know what column has been selected. This is column 5. This is column 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically, I want that column number to go in here. So if I put in 5 here, now what I want to do is I want to base some conditional format. I'm going to left justify these, and I'm going to right justify these. We're going to use those as admins. Those are going to be hidden, right? So, okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to develop conditional formatting. When a user clicks here, 5 is going to go here because this is column 5. What do I mean by that? Column, right? 5. Column 6, 7, 8. So when I bring this out, right, I want to know whatever column has been selected, I want to put it here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to base conditional formatting based on this column. It's very easy to code. So all I have to do is highlight this. All of those cells that I want conditional formatting, I'm going to go into conditional formatting, and I'm at a new rule. And that rule is going to be based on the column that was selected. So equals, and then we're going to do is B5, which is this, equals again, and then column, and then double parentheses, like that. Now I want to give it a specific format. What kind of format do I want to get it? Well, basically very similar to the background that's going on. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a fill effects. Now I'm going to go for, our background is this color. So I'm going to go a little bit darker and then a little bit lighter, right? I want that bottom to match our background exactly. Also, I don't want any borders on the bottom. I want to make sure that there's no borders on the bottom part, okay? Clear that out. Also, I want to change the font color, right? If it's going to be light, I need to change the font color to black. And I also want to make it bold. So click OK. Now click OK. Okay, so you see how that changes, but we do need a border around there. So that's important. So why don't we add the border around here, format those cells, and then what we'll do is we'll put a black border around those. And we'll see how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to put a black border on the outline of it, and then we can remove the bottom one. We don't need the bottom one, but we could put it, either way, it wouldn't show up. Okay, that's nice. That's what I want. So now as the user selects on a different, and it changes, right? So see how we can get that really nice tab effect? Just like that. Okay, perfect. That's what I want, all the way from 5 to 9. So good. So we've got the tab. So what we'll do is I'm going to have this section for our students. Then what we'll do is we'll hide certain rows, and then we'll make the fees and payments, just like that. Okay, great. So we kind of understand that. We'll get into the coding of how we're going to flip these. But what I want to do is I want to design the general info. Now I'd like to have, let's say I want to have a spacer here. Let's put this back to 5 so it's visually normal. So in the general information, I want to have a spacer here, spacer row, nothing in this row. And then I want to put something in here. So here, I'm going to put, let's say, first name. We need to track the student first name. I'm going to tab it over. I'm going to do last name. And then I want the student ID here. So student ID, we need to keep track of that ID. That's important. We may go with an ID. You've always asked me, how do we combine letters and numbers and have it? So maybe we'll do that in this case. But we'll start out with this, and I'll show you how. We'll start out with a standard ID, and then if you want it, I'll show you how to do different types of IDs. Okay. All right. So, and then probably in this section here, so I'll have a student ID, and then this section K and L, I'll put a picture in here. So we'll increase this about to 14 as well. Something like that, probably a little bit bigger. So I want a picture here. And so I want to skip a row, and then I want to put in the address. So address is going to go here. And then I'll probably put in the birth date here, birth date. I want to know the birth date of them. And skipping a row again, I'm put the city here, and then skipping, I'm going to put the state. We need to know state or region that they're in based on the country. And then also the zip code. I want to know that zip code there. Okay, next up, I want to have the parent name, because if this is a kid, we need to have the parent. We'll just call it parent 1 name. We might have multiple parents, so let's add that in. Put that in here, and then I also want the actually, let's put in before we put in the parent, let's put in the level or the grade. We need to know what level of the grade, and then also I want to put in email. We got to have the student email in case they're older, email, and then the phone. Okay, now we can put in the parent information, and then I want to put in parent 1 and then their email, and then parent 1 email. See how it's like the same, right? We have emails in the same column. And then parent 1 phone number. Then skip down. Also, this time we're going to do parent 2. So all we need to do is just copy this and then paste it down here. And then this one's going to be parent 2. Okay, we've got some more. And what we're going to do is these rows that we're skipping in between, we're going to actually make them smaller so it fits better. And so next up, what I want to have is the admission date. What date are the admission date? And then also perhaps we'll do the tuition fee. We need to know what tuition fee that should be billed. And I think we have to know how often are we going to bill that to the student? Every month, every 6 months. So we want to put a frequency in here. And then lastly, I want to put in some uneditable fields. Like I want to know the total fees that have been billed for that student. I also want to know the total paid. How much have they paid? Total paid. And maybe if they have a balance, we need to know that there's a balance. So these are going to be calculated fields, balance. Okay, we've got that perfect. So let's shrink it up. So what I want to do is I want to create this little spacer. And that spacer, basically the row is going to be smaller. So let's go ahead and hold down the control. And then every other column on those columns that are simply used as space, 14, 16, 18 we have, and 20 we have, I'm going to make those lower. So I'm going to right click, probably make them row height. I'm going to make them around 8 point. I'm going to drag this up here. Let's call this probably in half. So 8.5 there, or less, a little bit more than half. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so you see now how everything is. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply right justify these because I like them right justified. And then what I want to do is I want to left justify these things. So we can hold down the control, and I want to format all of these labels exactly the same here. So pretty much the same color. And then, so I'm holding down the control as I'm selecting them individually so that our form comes to life. So right click, format those cells. And I'll do is I'll border all the way around, and then I want to do a dotted line on the right, Okay, good. So that's it. Now let's do the fields and address. We're going to make it a lot larger. So I'm holding down the control again. We'll just give this a border as well. And we're also going to give it some color here, and then we'll format it accordingly. They have different formats, so we'll right click. We need to make column J bigger because that's got acceptance data. Format those cells. So this is going to take the white color, and then a border. It will go all the way around again. Let's do this and this and this. So it's top, right, and bottom borders. Okay, good. That's good. That's exactly what I want to see. Perfect. We'll add some icons. We've got buttons added. We also need to do the same thing for this. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Just get that format here. All right, I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste special, and then paste the format in here. Okay, there we go. So we've got that. That looks good. Now our form's coming to life. We can see it just the way I like it. But I like this to be all together. You see how it kind of doesn't. So what I want to do is I want to put a border all the way around here. So the first thing I want to do is put a border, format those cells, and put a border on the left side because I want that tab structure to be consistent. Okay, so you see how it's nice and consistent on the left side. We'll do the same thing on here. So all the way through L, what we're going to do, I'm going to put a border on the bottom because I want that tab group to be consistent. And we'll do that with every single tab. And again, the same thing here, all the way down here, all the way to, let's say, 21 here. We'll do the same thing here. So we'll format those cells here and then put the border here and here. Okay, good. I like that. And then what we'll do is we'll put the picture. It's really starting to come. So as we click here, we'll be able to see different. Perfect. Okay, so what else do we need to do? A lot. Well, I'm going to take this address. I'm going to merge and center this and then justify it to the left because that's going to be a larger field. Redo the borders on that one after doing that. And do the solid border on the top and the bottom. Okay, good. I like that. I like the way it looks. All right, so our picture is going to go in here, right? So we want to make sure that we have that completed. So let's put in, I'm going to put in a border here. I want a button set maybe down here. So let's put in a button set, I think right about here. Format those cells. Again, I'm putting in the border here. So there we go, I want a border. And now I want to put a button set down here. We're going to put something like add picture, clear picture. So let's add that now. We've got everything else. Once we add the buttons, then we're going to add the icons. Then we're going to build our menu, and then we're going to be able to select those tabs. So cool, we're moving along really well. Oh, don't forget to save your work. Let me save our work. Okay, continuing on. Let's add some buttons now. So I'm going to insert shape. We're going to go with a square design, right? We got a kind of a flat look here. So let's do that. Let's add this, and we want the same look and feel. So the shape fill is going to be this same color. We'll take no outline on that. All right, that's what I like. Let's format the size. 0.25 looks about good. Let's just make it a little bit bigger here. Okay, nice. And then what we want to do is get the font just the way we like it, and then we can duplicate it. So we've got lots of different buttons. Let's start out with add picture, and then I'm going to right justify it, make it in the center. I'm going to probably bold that font. Let's at least make it a little bit bigger. I like that. Okay, well, we might be able to stick with 11 because we've got a lot of text on there, and then it's going to get too big because we don't have a lot of space. So add picture, we go right here. So we'll put that in, and then I want clear picture. I want another button for clear picture. So we'll clear picture. Very good. So we'll put those there. I got to make them a little bit bigger here. Not the button itself, but just the cell itself. So, all right, moving these over. We'll get those out of the way. Let's see. We probably about the 14 again. We'll make them consistent. 14.29. Putting in those buttons. We'll be adding icons here. So I'm going to put add picture and then clear the picture. We want to do both of those things there. Next up, what else do we want to do? I want to be able to add, save, and delete, of course, students. So to do that, we need to Control D. Let's add a menu bar up here. So what do we want to do? Well, the first thing I want to save the student. And then I want to also, in case we're in a new, we need to cancel the student. So that's going to be another one. So let's cancel that. Let's add a cancel button onto that. Okay, copy and paste that. And then we'll just call it cancel new. So these are for new students. Cancel new. That means when you create a new student, we have two options. We have save the student and we have cancel new. That's one button set, but we have more than that. So I'm going to duplicate that. For existing students that have already been saved, I want to give it an update. I want to actually make that we can give the user the ability to update. So we want 3 buttons on that. The first of ones is going to be called new student in case we want to add a new student. Then we're going to, so new student. Then I also want to click update. So in case they've made a change, we can update it. So let's do that. Update. We'll just call it update. And then also what I want to do is I want to have the ability to delete a student. So let's type that in, delete student. Okay, very good. We'll make that one a little bit bigger, not quite big enough, 1.3 on that. That should be good. So we've got button sets here. So these are going to be the same location up here, new student, update, which is too big, and then 0.8. And then what we want to do is delete student. That's all the buttons we're going to need. That'll take care of it for us. All right, so let's get some icons going here so that we can actually see that a little bit clear. So I think 1.15 should be fine for that. I don't want to make it too big. All right, so let's add some icons. We also need a menu here. So what kind of menu do we need? Let's duplicate this and create a button. So I want a menu not going to give us a nice structure. So let's do 1.4 on this. So what kind of menu items? Our menu is going to go right down here. It's going to go all the way here. So what kind of items do we want for the menu? Well, I want a dashboard. So let's type in dashboard. And but I don't want them, I want them, let's say put them left justified, but I want to leave a space for those icons. So maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. That's going to leave space for the icon. All right, good. I like that, but they're going to be a little bit bigger, right? We don't want I don't want the font. I'm going to put it a big font. Let's say maybe 13. So it's going to be got to stand out. So 13. So that's going to be our font. All right. So now that we have that kind of size, just the way we want it to, we can do the rest. So let's duplicate it, Control D, and we're going to call this, let's click on it again, Control D. There we go, Control D. And then what we'll also want students, that's the current one we're on, students. This one's going to look different though, actually, because it's the selected. Then I also want to have another one that's called teachers. So teachers, I've got some icons here, so that's going to help us. As soon as we do the buttons, then we do the icons. So the icons are going to be on top automatically. Then also after teachers, I'm going to want to have a schedule. We need to know the schedule. That would be monthly, daily, weekly schedule, so we can schedule all those. Okay, so what else do we want? This one needs to be formatted the same way we have the rest left, and then space it. I got to put a space here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can also, if you don't want the spaces, another thing you can do is kind of add this, so we can do that. So let's do that instead of the spaces, right? So it's easier to understand they're all going to be the same. We can format those basically using this one right here, using the increase indent. So after the schedule, what do we want to have? I also want to have classes. So I'm going to duplicate that and then put in classes. Classes. Okay. And also classes, we need exams, tests, quizzes. So duplicate that again. Exams. We'll just call it exam. We'll keep it short, exam, and then I'll put an icon for that. Exams. And next up, transactions, notifications, and admin. So transactions. And then notifications, we also want notifications because we want to be able to notify students. So let's call this notifications. Okay. And last mean admin, right? So an admin. Okay. Duplicate that. Let's select outside, duplicate it. And we'll just call this admin. Okay. I like that again, but let's put the space in. Let's see how we do with this increment. Let's see if we can get it just the way we want to. Going to have to select inside the text again. Too much, right? It's too much. So one single is too much. So again, we'll go with the 5 spaces. That saves enough. So I think we're good there. We'll make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5 spaces on each so it's consistent. All right. So now what I want to do is I'll space those accordingly, and then I'll place them here. So basically pretty much here, 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 and here. So I want the first one to be on the top. So I want that first one basically to be even with the top. How can I size those accordingly? Well, let's just put them at the top. I can add a border here and a border here. So wherever I want, format those cells. I'm just going to line it up so that I can see where I want to line up, and then I'll remove the border just so we can see exactly where I want to line up, putting it up there. Okay. So I want to line it, put that dashboard right up here. And another thing we can do to make sure is let's change the background color on this one, not the black because it's harder to see. So we're going to change that background to the gray, which is consistent with the theme. Now we can see to make sure that they line up accordingly. So I'm going to bring it up here. And then until that, there we go. That's what I want. And then so dashboard, we've got students next. Students going to be colored differently. Remember, it's not going to be black. In this case, I'm going to make it white with a gray. And then teachers here will be our next. And we'll get those lined up. We're going to have, after the teachers, we want our schedule. Then we want our classes here. Then we want our exams, transactions here. And then notifications. We'll get everything lined up, notifications and the admin. Okay, we got some great tools that we can use to help us. So again, let's space these out accordingly. Making sure they're all exactly start at the same location, the same number of spaces, which is 5 spaces. So making sure they're all exactly even. And then the schedule will do it. Then what we're going to do is all right, there looks like they're almost lined up pretty well. Now we're just going to bring this up here and line them all up accordingly. So I'm going to use my selection tool here. Here's the selection tool. You can add that tool just by going into more commands if you don't have it, looking under all commands and searching for selection tool. Okay. And then so to have that, so I'm going to use that selection tool and I'm going to select them all. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the format and I'm going to align them to the left, and then I'm going to distribute them vertically. Then I'm going to take a look to see how it looks. Looks pretty good. I want to make sure that they're not size 2, so I'm going to move it down until I see some kind of separation, then up. That's what I want. So I wanted them just one up because I don't want to see any separation. See, this is how we have the different background, and we can take off our selection tool so we can see it until we get there. So until we don't see anything between them, perfect. That's exactly what I want. That one can be spaced exactly the same. And then what we can do is we can add the icons out here. Okay, good. I like that the way it looks now. It's looking good. That's a little bit too low. So we just play with it a little bit and space it out accordingly, because you can have the menu. See, now when we have a cell-based menu, cell-based, meaning clicked on the cells, we don't have the luxury of hiding. We're going to be hiding these rows, but we wouldn't have that luxury if we used a cell-based. That's why we're using a shape-based menu, so that we can do whatever we want. And then we can have the same one. All we need to do is copy and paste it on other sheets. It's going to be much easier to function and use it. So it's very, very easy. All we need to do. Again, as I mentioned, we're going to be teaching this. I don't think they're spaced all accordingly. I do need to set that up. It looks a little bit funny there. Okay. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, there we go. Now they're getting, okay, I like that. So dashboard, students, teachers, schedule, classes, exams, transaction, notifications, and admin. We have those 9, and we're going to, then what we want to do is let's just move them all up a little bit here so that it blends in. Now we can add that background back to, and then I think they're a little bit off, but perfect. There we go, a little bit to the right. So we want it to line up really nice. Let's add some icons. I've already done it. I'll include a link, but I've used a great website called Adioma, A-D-I-O-M-A, to get those icons. It's absolutely free. Let's add some icons. So I'm going to insert, and I'm going to insert the pictures. And I've got some icons here. Now, most of them are going to be white icons except for the students. So I've got calendar. I'm going to hold down the control. I want the white. Cancel I need. Check mark I need. The call the conference is we're going to be using for the teachers. I need a confirmation to save and update. I need a dashboard icon, payment icon. User profile, we're going to need that. I need the teacher. We're going to use this for the add picture button. And then again, like I said, the students, I do want the blue one. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm using this for students. So, and I also want this for actually the main icon. Okay, so we want the admin here. We're going to need that, but I want that in white. I've got it in blue. We'll show you how that works. I want the recycle bin to clear the pictures. I want the plus to basically add a new student. We're going to use this as the school manager icon, the white one. And then envelope, we need this for notifications. Good, so I've got everything. Now I'm just going to click insert, and they're all going to be large size. So I'm going to reduce the size down to 0.2 for most of them, and then we'll change them accordingly. Okay, take off our selection tool, and I'm going to move these up here to where we can see them. And now we can start to work with them. So this is our school icon here. So we're going to add that here. That's our main icon. Let me move that here. So this is our school icon. I'm going to move this up here, bring it all the way up here. And then we'll just size it accordingly so that it looks better. Okay, so that's our school manager. I also want one for students. Now notice the students is the blue. I want 2 of them, right? I want this one to show up here because we're in the students section. And I want to duplicate that. And now I should make, and this one 0.2. This is going to be for our menu. It's different color because it's the one that's selected. Therefore, I want to color this one differently. So I'm going to format this cell. And then what we'll do is we'll do a small fade format here. And then we'll go into the fill, and then I want a gradient fill. Here, what kind of gradient fill? We're going to start out with basically a very light gray here. And then what we'll do is we'll go into the white and we'll remove the middle one. And then I can remove this one. We don't need that one. And I want basically a vertical. So we're going to type linear. And then what we want to do is I want to go from, let's say, dark to light on the left side. So we'll go ahead and choose the left side, which is, I believe, this one here is what I want. Okay, close. That's what I want there. Perfect. Okay, and of course we got to change the font. I'm going to change that font. I'm going to use that same blue color that we used, which is right here. Not the background. The font color, which is the same blue color. And then I'm going to bold it. Nice. That's what I like. Then we're going to put this icon right here. So now we can distinguish between the student, the selected one. Now we can add the rest of the cancel is going to go here. And the reason we add the icon second, schedule is going to go here. And then we have our, again, let's take a look at this. I'll put this for exams. So you see our menu starting to build up. This one is going to be for our teachers, I believe. And let's move that over accordingly. And then we've got this one going to be using for save here, save there. And this one's going to be for our dashboard. It's going to be a dashboard. You see our menu start to come together. And notifications, we've got payments or transactions. We can use this icon here. I want the plus. This is going to be for add new. So we're going to put this here. And then, of course, I want clear picture going to be here. We've got here, what is this one here? This is going to be for our admin. And then let's say, take a look at this one I've got here. This will be for our classes. It looks like a class here. Then I got this for add the picture. This one I'll put. Okay, I like that. Now let's get everything lined up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to line everything up. What you want to do is you want to make sure the first and the last one are lined up. So in this case, right, I want to line these two up. So I'm going to center those here and bring that down. So it brings it, and I'm going to center these two and then the rest. So I'm going to center those and put in the middle, and it brings it down. Now that they're right, and make sure that they're just about right. And now I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to highlight all those icons. First, I'm going to line them up in the middle like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute them vertically. So align and distribute it vertically. Very nice. Okay, I like that. I like the way it looks. It's looking really nice and perfect. So let's continue on. Looking good. So what we want to do now that we got that menu really set up just the way we want it, I'm going to use our selection tool. I'm going to highlight everything in it. I'm going to put it, group it together. And then the next thing after you group, you always want to make sure you want to move but don't size. So I'm going to go into the properties. I'm going to format that. I'm going to go into the properties here and move but don't size. That way if I change the cell, it's going to be perfect. It won't matter. So we've got this perfectly lined up. Let's line up column C. It won't change it. Now we've got our students just the way we like it. We've got our, okay, so cool. So let's focus on our buttons now, and then we're going to add some functionality. We'll take off the selection tool here, and we have save student. So we want that. We're going to add that in. We're going to use the same one. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to use the same thing, same icon for update. So update looks good. What in the save student, what we're going to do is we're just going to make it a little bit bigger, make that button a little bit 1.15, give a little more space. So save student, probably change that to 1.2. Give it more space. Okay, I like that. And then again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the control. I'm going to put them in the middle, and then I'm going to group them together. And then we don't necessarily need to name this specific button, but we will need to name it as a group. And I'll show you what that means in just a moment. Again, 1.2, making sure they're the same. Cancel the new one, right? If we're in the new mode, we may want to cancel it. So again, putting it in the middle, grouping it. Now, these two buttons here are a little bit too close together. These two buttons are going to be part of our new group. What does that mean is that only for new students will we see the two options, either save it or cancel new. So I'm going to put those buttons in the middle, and then I'm going to group them together. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it new student group. Okay, so these two buttons are going to be used only for the news. This one, we're going to focus on this one here. Again, let's make it a little bit bigger. Again, 1.2, try to make it consistent here. Holding down the control, putting them in the middle, grouping them together. Same thing for the update here. A little bit bigger, probably 0.9 here. And then moving this over a little bit, and then we're going to center that again here in the middle, grouping them together. Same thing with delete. Delete student, we're going to copy this because we need to use that for delete. I'm going to bring that up here so we have the same button, same icon here. Okay, nice. I like the way that looks. A little bit big on the icon, but I think it should be fine. That one looks a little bit big, doesn't it? Okay, so let's go into 0.17, a little bit. Okay, now, and then I'll hold down the control in the middle, group it together. Okay, so now we have our delete, our cancel new. Just what we'll do is we'll bring these about, give it a little more spacing. These two button sets are going to be in the same location because they will not be displayed at the same time. So we're going to distribute them horizontally. I'm then going to group them together. I'm going to call this existing student group. Okay, so those are for existing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these up here, bring them up to the top, going to make them because they're not going to be displayed at the same time. That's why we can show them just like that on top of each other. For now, right? As soon as we get those macros running, we have an add picture. I like this. This looks good. This is a little bit too big on these both. So let's make them a little bit 0.18, a little bit smaller so we can see. And the buttons add picture and clear picture. Okay, nice. We just need to make this a little bit bigger. These two columns a little bit bigger so we have some space for the picture. It's going to extend those buttons a little bit. Okay, so we can make the buttons a little bit smaller because they're already sizing according 1.1. And then also, again, let's try to do the same thing here, 1.1. Perfect. They're going to fit in really well now. And now we have them just right. This one's got to be a little bit bigger. 1.2. Okay, so we've got them, and let's go ahead and do the same thing we did. Put them in the middle, group them together. Same thing here. And what I'm going to do is I want to put a border around this picture. Let's put a white border around this picture. And let's add a little bit outline here because I think it would look good. I want to put a white border, select white because I want it to make it look like a picture, and then make it a little bit thicker, that border. Take a look. All right, I like that. Let's take a look at that. Let's see what that looks like. That looks really nice. So holding down the control in the middle, grouping them. So we got this add picture and clear picture button. Now these two buttons, these two specific buttons, what I want to do is these are only going to be displayed on the general info, only on the general info. They're a little bit too big right now. Let's move them over here, see if we can squeeze them in, bring in these columns a little bit bigger. But before we do, we're going to format those. Again, size and format the object. Sorry, it's off the screen, but I just click format object. Properties, move but don't size, because when I resize these columns a little bit bigger here, I want to make sure that the buttons don't size. There we go, perfect. Lining up them in the middle, grouping them together, and I only want these group of buttons to display only on the general info, so I have to hide it. So what we're going to call this general info group, right? And then if we have other buttons in other groups, we can. So that way we hide this group when we're select on any other tab. Very nice. Okay, so what about the other tabs? So now we've got everything we want here, but let's build out some of the other tabs. Saving our work and bring it down. So what do I want here for the other tabs? Well, I really basically want a few other things. So I'm going to skip some rows here, and then let's say in the fees and payments, I want to have additional tables. So let's start at perhaps row 30. And then we can move on. So row 30 is going to take on a fees and payments. So we're going to bring this down here, build out a little bit of a table for that, and then we can track that. So I'm just going to drag that down here so we can see that. And now what we'll do is, starting on row 30, what do I want in row 30? Well, I want a fees and payments table. So we're going to start in row, call this student fees and payments. What do we want in here? Well, basically then I want to, probably not in D, but in column E. Actually, let's start that in column E, right? Because D is going to be our spacer column, so we don't need that. So inside the first, let's say I want to have the type. I want to know what type of a fee or payment. Is it an expense? Is it a fee? Is it a payment? So they're going to have different type. I want to know the date of the transaction, and I want to know the amount. If it's on a specific term, meaning a school term, we need to know that. I'm not sure, we've got some space. I need to put notes, and we may add some other things. So, okay, so let's merge and center that. I'm going to go all the way to L because I want it consistent with that. And I'm going to merge and center that. I'm going to change that font to white. I want it consistent with our theme and probably make it bold. And then what I'll do is I'll format those cells, right click, fill effects here. I'm going to bring it in. So now what I want to do is I want to add something, maybe a dark here. And then we'll go with a little bit lighter color here. And then I'll do the same thing, but a little bit lighter below. And then again, same thing. I want to center these. I want to color the font white, make it bold, right click, format those cells. Fill is going to be almost the same. We started here, these two colors. So I want to do a little bit less, a little bit lighter color so it blends in. So in this case, from here to this one here, and then click OK, which is going to be the fade down effect. Okay, and then good, I like that. And then we'll just add some borders onto that. Border should be white in this case, so we'll add the color of white, and then we'll go outside and inside on that and click OK. Let's take a look, see how that looks. That looks what I want. So notes, I'm not sure notes, we may have one other, so we'll keep this open. Notes may start here because I think we might have a few other things, but we have some flexibility with this. So how many rows do we want? I want this table, but we have a limited number of rows, at least for what we can see on a quick view, and then we'll be able to see all of them in the dashboard and report section. So let's go ahead with 20. So I'm going to go down 20. We'll include 20. That's a good level. And then what we'll do is we'll format those accordingly. Let's make sure we're 20 down, and all the way across to L. There we go, just like that. And format those cells. We'll put that border around it. We'll just put a black border all the way around it here. And then we can format them individually. And inside, we'll put a little bit of dotted line. Then what I'm going to do is do conditional formatting, and I want to do alternating rows. So I'm going to do new rule, and then we'll use a mod formula, So equals mod, and this is auto hotkey that automatically types out. Auto hotkeys are free software. Mod of row 2 equals 0. So we want to focus on even rows, and I'm going to give that a format there. And we're just going to go with a little light color. So I'm going to go with a fill, probably white in this case, and click OK. And then what we're going to do is just color the other rows dark. So we click OK, click apply, and that's going to apply those. Okay, good. I like that. That looks pretty good just the way. And then I'll go a little bit lighter color on this. So we're going to go with this. Okay, so now we've got a nice little table here. That looks really good. I think we do need to color the outside black on these so it's consistent. We're going to be duplicating this. So I'm going to go with a border on this. So we have a consistent outside border. The inside will stay that white color. Okay, I like that. Perfect. So we've got 20 rows down and now we're ready to build out. So now the next thing is I want to focus on the attendance, right? We need to have attendance, but now it's much easier because we built it. Attendance is going to be a very similar table, and that's going to start, let's say, on row 53. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and we're going to go down a few rows. Let's say I want to skip one row. So in 53, now I'm going to create an attendance table, and this will only be viewable under the attendance tab. So we'll just call this attendance. All right, and what do I want in the attendance? I want, let's say we want a date, and I want a time. I also want a class. I don't know what class is in, and I want to know the type, and then maybe some notes as well. So that's going to help us attendance. That's all we have to do for attendance. But I also want to know the exam. See how much easier it is? So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to skip a row, and in exams, we're going to start on row 76 right here. So I'm going to paste in that. Let's copy that actually. So I'm going to copy that, go up here. And then skip one row. So in 77, we're going to paste 76. We're going to paste it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to type in exams. And what do we want to show for exams? Well, I probably want to show something like the date again, the time. I do need to know the class, maybe an exam type, maybe the maximum score, right? Maximum score of that and the actual score, or maybe the grade here, score or grade, and then notes again. So we have notes here on exam notes. Maybe we'll add another field, but that should be good here. So we have exam. Okay, the last thing is the ID card. The ID card is not going to be a table. It's just going to be an open. So what we're going to do is I'm going to drag this down. I want also 20 rows. I want to be consistent with that. So I'm going to drag this down the background. And then I'm going to do, again, 20 rows, skipping one, and then we'll call this the ID card. So we can copy this one, just the top one, and paste it down here into 99. And we'll call this ID card. Then again, I'm going to go, let's say, in fact, it was 20 rows. So we'll go down 21 in this case. In this case, I want to go 21 here. Not that many. Okay, 21 here, 21, which is going to bring it down right here. And then I'm going to bring it across. I'm just going to put a border across here. Format those cells and a border. Okay, good. Now we can build out the macro that's going to add those tabs. Okay, so we have ID cards, exams, attendance, student fees and payments, and we got more room to add more fields here if we need. So cool. So when I click here, I want those tabs to show up. I'm going to write the macro right now to do just that. All right, great. So let's do that now. So basically we're going to go into the VBA and do that. So we're going to click on the developers tab. And if you don't have the developers tab open, you can find that here under the options and just select on the customize ribbon and make sure you've selected developers. There's a shortcut that can get you into the VBA, and that's Alt F11 or clicking here. Okay, so we have this thing. We want to do some work in here. So we've got our sheets here. And let's go ahead and rename. We're going to rename and add mounts, but it's better to rename these sheets. So because especially in a large application like that, let's do that now. So to rename them, we can click on the properties here, and I want to rename. I don't want the sheet one. So we'll call this admin. Pretty self-explanatory. Just keep it very, very simple. We'll call this student database here. Student database. We're renaming. This is the code name that we're actually renaming. Sheet 2 again is going to be, we're going to call this students. Just keep it very simple. Keep it the same, so it's not going to be. And then teachers here. So let's see, sheet 3. Let's continue on sheet 3. Second, going to be, that will be teachers. And that way everything's consistent. That way if the sheet name changes, we'll use the code name. The code name is better. Schedule. In the schedule, I'm going to build a lot of functionality. It's going to be really cool with drag and drop. Classes. So renaming these is going to help us recognize them. Classes. And then transactions, exams here. So exams. And then I also want to make sure that we do transactions here in sheet 7. And we'll be adding more sheets, of course, especially more databases as we move along. I just wanted to get the fundamentals down. Notifications here. This way we can use this within the code, and even if they change the sheet name, it won't affect the code, which is really important. Okay, so let's take a look. We've got admin, classes, we've got exams, notifications, schedule. Sheet 9 is going to be our dashboard, so we got to do that one too. Good about a full dashboard. We'll have multiple reports on a single click dashboard. That's going to be great. We've got menus. Okay, I like the way it looks. Now let's create a module. So we're going to right click, insert module. This is where we're going to put our tabs macro. So let's just call this student tabs, because we may have tabs in other sheets. So student tabs. So basically what I want to do inside the tabs is I want to create multiple tabs, those 5 or 6 tabs that we have. I want to create a macro for each one of them. So the first thing is subroutine student tab, and this is going to be called general info. And I'm just going to create one and then duplicate it and then make some changes. So we're going to focus on with students sheet. So with students, so that's what we, right? Our name is now students. So with students, we can focus on that sheet. So with students, and if you're not sure if you have the name right, let's say we don't have it right, I put a period here, nothing's going to happen, right? But if I have the name right, I put a period, it's going to all give us that auto intelligence, going to automatically sense that and see that we have the different sheets there. So it's really, really IntelliSense there. That's the word I'm looking for. IntelliSense is going to let us know that we got so many options. So with students, what do we want to do? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I want to hide everything. Hide everything. And that's going to, what I mean by everything? Well, basically what I want to do is starting from, I'm going to keep row 4 here as a spacer, but starting at row 5, all the way to the last one I'm going to hide. So the last one is, in this case, 120. So rows 5 to 120 we're going to hide. We're going to do that consistently with every macro. So to do that, we can write that up. So how do we write that? Dot range, we're focused on our dot range. Then we'll put in 5 and this and the and sign and parentheses, colon, parentheses, and what? And all the way through 120. We can remove that last. We're not going to need that there. Okay, it's through 5 and 120, not value, but what do we want to do with it? We want to hide it. So the entire, what do we want to hide? Entire row, not column, row. What do we want to do? Hidden. What's the hidden property? But is it true or false? Well, in this case, we want it true. Hidden equals true. So true. Hide all rows. That's what we want to do. So everything's going to be hidden. 5, and let me fix that. Okay, so now what else do we want to do? So now I want to show only the rows that I want to show. What do I want to show? In this case, I'm going to show 7. 6 is not, we're not going to hide. So 7, actually I need to change that to 7. I need we want to show 7. This should be 7, not 5, sorry. 7, because we want to show 7 through 120. So I want to show 7, let's say through, keep this 7 through 28. 7 through 28, I want to show that. So, or in this case, unhide it. So let's do that right now. But the first thing is, it's going to be flashing a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write something called application dot screen updating equals false. And what this can do is prevent flashes. But before the macro ends, we must then turn this automatically back on. So I'm going to paste it here equals true. So it turns it back on. So let's focus on what we want to show. So what I can do is just copy this and then make some updates. So pasting that in. So 7 through, what did I say? 28, right? 28, I believe that's what it was. Instead of hidden equals true, it's going to be hidden equals false, and that means display it. Show general info tab rows. Okay, we can remove this, give us more space. And so let's take a look at that, 7 through 28. So all the way down through 28, it's going to show. We may add additional fields here, so it's going to be helpful. Okay, continuing on inside our code. Now that we have that, what else do we want to do? Well, I want to trigger this conditional formatting. Remember, we know that when we select here, I want it. So how do we do that? We have to put column 5 here. So how do we do that? B5 is going to equal something, right? So what is it going to do? Let's take a look at what B5 equals. Dot range, B5, and again, I use auto hotkey that automates that, auto hotkey, so you can get that as a free software, equals, what is it going to equal? Active, we're going to equal active cell, means what the user active, let's spell it right, active cell dot column. I want the column to display there, right? The column that we've selected, that's what I want there. Okay, so what I want to do also, right, when they select it, I want to make sure this group here, this group might grow if we add more buttons. General info group, I want that. I'm going to copy that, Control C. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that in. I want that display, but I want hidden everywhere else, right? I want it hidden if they select any other tab. So again, dot shapes, in this case, we're going to focus on shapes. And then what's the name of it? Paste that in. Dot visible equals MSO true. I wanted to display the button set. Display button set Okay, so that's going to be good. Okay, also there might be a student picture, right? Often I want a picture to display here. And if there's one available, I want it shown. When I select other tabs, I want to make sure that picture gets hidden. But when I select here, if it's displayed, I want it showed. So let's take a look at that and let's add that in. So, but in case it's not, it could create an error. So the first thing we're going to do is on error, resume next, because if that picture doesn't exist, it will create an error. When we do create pictures, they're always going to have the same exact name. So dot shapes, what's the name? It's going to call it student pic, and then dot visible equals, so true, I want to display that. And then if there was an error, we need to on error resume go to 0. So on error go to 0. So in this case, on error is good. That's going to reset the error. Okay, very good. Let's take a look at that. So that's what I want. Okay. So, and when do I want that to appear? I'm going to save my work. When do I want this to appear? Well, I want it to appear. I want this thing to happen when I select E5. But when I make a selection all the way from E5 all the way through I5, I want to run some macro. It's going to be different macros. So what's called a selection change. So when I make that selection change, I want it to happen. And what sheet do I want it to happen on? On this student sheet right here. So I'm going to select this student sheet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select worksheet, and then I want to put selections. It's already selection change. And that means when the user makes a selection change, we want something to happen. But if user makes a large selection of a lot of rows and columns, it could create an error. So we want to put in if target dot count large is greater than 1 or 2 or something greater than 1, then exit sub. That prevents bugs. So now what I want to do is if the user makes a selection to what? The user makes a selection to anywhere from E5 through I5, we want something to happen. What do we want to happen? So if not, we need to write some code. Again, auto hotkey is going to help me write that code. E5 all the way to I5. And basically what this is if not intersection is nothing. I know it sounds confusing, but when you see double negatives like this, forget them, right? Cancel them out. So if the user has made a selection change between anywhere from E5 to I5, then do something. What do we want to do? Well, we don't know. We don't know what one they've selected. So if the target column equals 5, then do something, right? If the target column, this time we're using target column. So what is that target column? If target, that means that what they've selected, dot column equals 5, then I've already copied that macro and I'm going to paste it in. Run general info. Now all we need to do is say if the target column equals 6, run this and this and this and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to save our work, always save our work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go out of here and then select here and run that macro. Now nothing changed. I did change, right? So if I hide these, right? Let's just go ahead and hide these right here. Just to see what it would look like. Hide. And then I select this. Now you can see it happen. There we go. It's working just perfectly. But I just don't want to keep the selection in here. I want to select something else. So I'd like to select maybe this when that happens. So let's write that inside the macro. And then that will be finished. So let's go back to the macro in here. And then all I want to do is just simply select something else. So dot range F3, that's the one we had, dot select. Okay, so we're selecting another cell. So now this, we can click it again and again and again. Why is that? Because we're selecting F3. So F3 here. Yeah, this is probably better, F3. Need to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, nice. Looking good. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to write macros for the others. It's much easier now because we've added. All we need to do is make just a few changes. So let's go ahead and copy this. And then I'm going to paste it down here. Of course, we need to change the name of the macro. We can't have two macros with the same name. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to call this one called fees, right? Student fees. So student tab, not going to be general info. This one we're going to call fees. And instead of showing 7 through 28, we need to show something else. What do I want to show? Well, let's unhide it and see exactly what we want to show. I'm going to right click here, unhide these. And I want to show, in this case, I want to show from 30 all the way to 51. So we just need to change it 30 to 51 in this case. So this changes to 30. This changes to 51. And one more thing, 51. And this changes, right? I don't want to show the picture. So this one is going to be changed to false. And also I don't want to show the general info group, right? This group right here only is displayed for this section. So I want to hide that. So in this case, again, this is going to be false. I want to hide it. So we're going to change this false, and this is going to be hide the button set. There we go. So now all we need to do is write the macro. So let's write the other macros here so we can just continue on by using copy and paste. So the next one, now that fees are done, we want the attendance. So we'll call this attendance. Okay, attendance. And what under the attendance, again, what do we want to show? In this case, we're going to be displaying 53 all the way through 74. So inside the macro, oh, that should be not 730. 30, that's going to be a problem. Okay, so this case, we want to 54, I believe it was. Let's double check that because I forgot already. Short-term memory. 53 all the way to 73. 53 to 73. 53 to 73. That's what we want displayed. And everything else is going to be false. Everything else is very, very easy. So that's 10. It's cool. So that's easy. Now let's copy this and go down here. And this one we want, now that we have attendance done, the next one is we want exams. So we're going to change this to exams. We're going to double check on the rows that we want in hidden. So exams starts at 76 and ends at 97. 76 to 97. So we're going to write that inside the macro. Here, 76 to 97. Nothing else we need to do here. Last one here we have to write, of course, is for our ID, student ID. We'll call this student ID. And if we take a look in what rows we have to display for that, it is going to be 99 all the way through 120. So we'll just update the code accordingly. 99 through 120. That's why it's so easy when you hide everything first. So 120. Now, all we need to do is just update our macros inside our selection chain. So it's right here. Inside our students here, we just have to write. Now what we can do is just copy this, copy all this, and then make the updates accordingly. So paste that in here, paste, paste, paste. Okay, so we have 6, the column equals 6, 7 here, 8, and then 9. So of course they're on different macros. So what macros are they? Well, of course, it's no longer general info. In this case, this particular macro is fees, right? So we can change this to fees, F. And if you use lowercase letters and it changes automatically to capital, then you know you've got the right name. Run fees tab. The next up, we have fees, we have attendance. So again, I'm going to use the smaller letters just to know ATTEND. If it changes to capitals, I've got the right name. Attendance tab. And then, of course, here under the next one, we want in column 8, that is going to be our exams. So let's go ahead and put in exams. And then again, using the lowercase, making sure it's right. Run exams tab. See, it's easy once we start out because we just have to follow along. And the last one is student ID. Student ID, okay? And make sure it goes to capital. Run student ID. Okay, good. So what we'll do is we're going to save our work. Always save before running macros. And now we can test it out to see how we're doing. Okay, go back in here all the way at the top here. Oh, you know what? One thing it's actually right. We didn't forget anything. Okay, cool. Because the column's automatically dynamic based on the selected column. Nice. Okay, ID card looks good. Exam, make sure, we need to hide more, right? ID card should be hidden. We got to make sure we're hiding all the way to at least probably 121. So I do need to update that accordingly. So we want to do that. Let's go ahead and take a look and let's go back into there, right? So 120, hiding those, entire row hidden true. I want to make sure we're hiding everything. That looks good. All right, let's take a look. This is what's wrong. 7. Why didn't you guys tell me? Nobody told me. Just let me do it. Exams. Okay, exams, right? When does exams end? Exams ends at 97. Okay, there's our little bit of an error there. Nobody said anything. You just let me make those mistakes. All right, let's take a look here and make sure that's right. Perfect. That's what I want. Hidden. Hidden. Good, good, good. We need to add a border on the bottom of this one. Make sure it's 73. This one, I format those cells. And let me just take a look at 74. Make sure we have the right unhide. So we got it. This should be 74, not 73 on attendance. Again, you guys didn't tell me. Okay, attendance should be 74, not 73. One more row there. Okay, let's take a look at that. Double check your work. Cool, I like that. That's good. Got the bottom border there, bottom border there, bottom border there. and the fees and payments. Okay, we're looking really good. So you see how everything just applies here. Very good. So what's next? Well, I want to save the student information to a database, right? We got to save it. So we've already put our database here. So once we save it, we got to put it, we're going to put it in right here. I want to save everything here. So the best way to do that is to basically use data mapping. And I'll show you what that is if you're not familiar with. So I'm going to put some map data here. And what I mean by mapping is I want to know that first name F7 is going to go in, let's say, column 2. Student ID is going to go. So we want to put everything in here so we can save all that information. That way we can load it up. Okay, so how is the best way to do that? Well, the best way to do that is to take a screenshot of this so that we can map them accordingly. So I'm going to bring it down here so I can map these fields accordingly. So I'm going to use my Snagit tool. I'm going to take a screenshot of that. And what that's going to do is I want to make sure to include the columns and the rows. I'm going to bring it down here and then making sure that it includes that. And then I'm going to copy that and I'm just going to take it into my software. I'm just going to copy that there and I'm going to go back into the student database, and this is going to help me build it out because I'm going to paste it temporarily in here. So now I have everything here. We can bring this up. We're not going to be formatting it for the moment. Okay, so now we have there. So what do I want to put in? I'm going to put map data here. So what do I want in my first column? I'm going to start my headers on row 3. First thing I want is a student ID. So put in student ID. The next thing I want is the first name. We'll go in order. Then I want the last name. Then I want the, obviously, student ID we've done already. So the address. Then we're going to put in the birth date. I'll probably spell things wrong. Then city, state. See, there you go. Just said it. State, zip. And then also we want the level or grade here. Okay, so we will put that. Next up, I want the email and I want the phone. Okay, then we got to put the parent information. So we'll call this parent 1. Let's call this parent 1 email and parent 1 phone. Then also we want the parent 2, right? We need to have that. And then of course the parent 2 email and the parent 2 phone, parent 2 phone. Okay, next up, let's say we want the admission date. Let's call it admin date. We'll abbreviate that. And also want the tuition fee and I want the frequency. Okay, I need to know how long. Everything else, the fees, the balance, the paid, that's going to be non-editable. So that's going to be, we won't need that. Okay, so I have everything in here. Let's go ahead and we'll center that in a minute. Now what I want to do is I want to know the matching cells. For example, student ID, we know that we can look in this screenshot and see it's J7. So I'm going to put J7. I also want to know the first name. That's going to be an F7. So we're just going to continue on this and add the last name. It's H7 while we've got the student ID while the address is F9. Then continue on, we have the birth date, which is J9. So this is going to help us mapping. This reduces the code a ton. The city is located in, again, F11. We're on row 11 now, while the state is H11 and the zip code is J11. Okay, moving down to row 13, we want the grade level. So F13, we then have the email on H13, and we have our phone located on J13. Then we're back into row 15 on the parent 1 located in F15, while the parent phone H15 there, parent, and then the parent phone number located on J15. Back into row 17. Right now, parent 2, again, we can do F17. We have 17. Then we have the parent 2, which would be, of course, H17. And we have H17. And we have J17. Okay, the last row, we have our admission date, which is going to be F19. Making sure. And then we have our tuition fee located in H19, and lastly our frequency located in J19. There is one that I do want. I want to add that picture, right? I want to add the picture file path. So file, so we'll just call it picture path, right? I want to save the path of that picture. We're going to put that, let's say, in K19. So add that there. And also I want one additional field. I want the full name. So this is not going to have, this is going to be calculated full name. And what's it going to be calculated? I want to put in the first and last name or last name, first name. Now it's going to be based on something. What does that mean? I want to give the end user the ability to either show first name, or last name, first name. So I just want to put in something kind of temporarily here in the admin. We're not using it yet. So we'll just call this view I don't know exactly where it's going to be. Names by, and we don't really know. So let's just call this, we give it two options here. Data, I'll build this screen out a lot, but for now it's fine. We'll just go in list. And what do I want to do? Last name, comma, first, actually, let's go do, we can just do last name and then let's say first name, or then again, comma, first name, last name. That would be good. That's last name. Okay, spacing between there, and then we'll get set, not that. Space name. Okay, good. So we got that, just a space between here. So I want to know which one we're going to have, and then I'll update that accordingly. But for now, we don't need it. F2, get out of there, and name. Okay. All right, so we've got that. Let's go ahead and say we have first name, last name, first name. That's what I want. Click OK. We can get, and then what we can do is we can choose between last name, first name, or first name, last name. Either way, last name, first name, or first name, last name. Okay, let's add some data validation on that. Data validation here, add some. And what do I want to do? Basically, first name, first name. We'll add that in later because I want to do a few options. What kind of options do we want? Well, something like maybe, let's say options would be last name, comma, first name. And then, or if we have first name, last name. Something like that. Those are the options that I would want probably. So why don't we do that? Let's just write in data validation. We'll do data validation. What do I want? Probably a list box here. And then we can do something like this. So I want that to be the options. Click OK. So here we go. So last name, first name. So if it's this, we do this. So I'm going to copy that at option. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the student database formula. And here I want to create a formula based on that first name. So, and it's going to be based on this. So equals if, and then we're going to do go to admin, clicking here, admin, E3 equals, what's it going to equal? And then I paste in first name, last name. Then what do we want to do? Then what I want to do is I want to go back into our student database here and then select on, then what I want to show is the last name, comma, first name. So our last name is going to be located right here in C, and then and space or comma and then space, then the first name and the first name. So we're going to do last name and comma first name. So then first name. Otherwise, right? Otherwise, what if it's false? In that case, I want to do the first name and the last name. So that way, otherwise, first name and the space and then the last name. So when I bring down that formula, and we forgot the and, then it's going to bring either one. It's going to change it automatically based on that and the last name. Again, so let's go. If the admin E3 will change this update, maybe I'll add a named range onto that, equals last name, first name, then show student database. We can just get rid of that. C1 and comma B1. So when we copy, otherwise B1 and C1. So when we copy down that formula, for example, right, when I put in here Fred and then Fredders, and copy this down, automatically bring down this formula, it's going to change it automatically regardless. So copy that formula, paste in the formulas. We're going to show Fred Fredders here, Fred Fredders, or when I change this again, first name, last name, let's take a look at that. Student database, Fred Fredders. Okay, I just forgot to make that absolute. We got to make this, of course, we have to make it absolute right here. So that one's got to be absolute there. Now when we copy that down, sorry, I forgot about that. Paste in those formulas, okay, now it'll change automatically. So now when we go back to last name, first name, it'll change accordingly. Okay, so Fredders, Fred. Okay, so that way, whenever the admin changes it, it's going to be automatically displayed. I like that a lot better. Okay, great. So we've got our mapping, we've got our title. Now it's going to call this students database. So I'm going to add in called students. This we don't need to make pretty because nobody's going to see it. Students database, and then just bring it accordingly. So we can, at least we can make it pretty for our purposes. And then what we'll do is we'll merge and center that. And then just give it a little bit of a color just so we can see it clearly. We'll go with this green and then the light green on the bottom and just give borders. I'll drop this down. We'll center it, give it some borders here, and we can see it properly, and then just give it the light green color. Okay, good. So that was, and then of course our data mapping, that's going to come in really handy when we do the coding. So center that, and then what we'll do is we'll give that a gray color and borders. Okay, now we've got our database. We're done with this. Let's double check J7, F7, H7, F9, J9, F11. Now let's get H11, J11, F13, making sure the ranges are correct. H13, J13, perfect. F15, H15, J15, F17, and so on and so on. It's making sure that they're all correct. They look good. K19, we're going to be adding that. Okay, good. We're done with this. We can delete that screenshot, saving our work. Let's go ahead and write some macros so we can get inside and start adding some students and some student information. So going back to the students, now let's make this alive. Let's go ahead and activate this. I'm going to center this, making sure those are centered. There we go. I like that a little bit better. Okay, nice. What are we ready to do? So now we've got our information here, and let's go ahead and activate. I want to add pictures. I want to create macros for our students, and I want to make sure that these button sets both get accordingly distributed. So I'm going to center those. I just like them in the same place here. So I'm going to make sure that those are centered using here. Now they're centered. Okay, good. I like that. Good. What are we doing next? Next, what I want to do is I want to add some macros. So we're going to go and create a brand new module inside our VBA. I'm going to insert module, and we're going to call this students. So students, basically student module, student macros. Give it a specific name. So students, and then just we'll call this miscellaneous because it's going to be all for students. And then I want to add some macros to this. What kind of macros do I want to add to that? Well, we're going to add a lot of macros, but we want to add some dimensions. So we want to add some dimensions so we can work with those macros easily for regardless of the macro. So dimension, I wanted the picture path. We're going to need that for the full file path of the picture as we insert that. So as a string. And then also I want to use the student row, dimension the student row as long. We're going to loop through columns. So student column as long. Also, I need to know the last student row as long, and also the last results row. We're going to be looping through this using advanced filters, so we need to have that done. Last result row as long. Okay, that's going to be it. That's all we need, but we do need to write some macros. What kind of macros do we need to write? Well, the first thing I want to be able to add a new student. So subroutine, student, and then add new. What else do we want? I want to be able to save or update it. You can use the same macro for both saving and updating. So sub, student, they all begin with the same because it's a large software, so we want to be able to easily define macros. Save and then update. I also need to load it. We need to load once we save and update. We also need to sort those names. Once I save and update, I want to be able to sort. I'm going to have two lists. I want to sort them alphabetically. I want a macro that's going to sort them. So to do that, sub student and then sort names. I'm going to copy this because everything begins with the same. So we have that. And also, what else do we want? I want to be able to, of course, load them. So we have to have student load, sub, and then student load. So loading those. Once we have them loaded, I also want to cancel new. Remember, if we're in the new screen, sub, again, student cancel new. I want to cancel out of that new screen. We also want to be able to delete a student, sub, and then student delete. Okay, great. And now we got to focus on some pictures. We want to be able to do really three things with the picture. I want to add a picture, and then I want to display a picture. So sub, and then student add picture, no space, picture. I want to be able to show the picture, right? We have to, once we add it, we actually need to show the picture. So we're going to continue down here, and then sub and student show picture. And also, of course, we're going to clear, right? If we want to remove the picture, we need to clear the picture. So our last macro is going to be for to clear the picture. So again, sub student, and paste that where we had it, and then clear the picture. Okay, that's all the macros we're going to need right now for our students. So we're good to go on that. First thing we want to do is we want to be able to add the new one, right? We need to add a brand new one, and we also want to import the picture. So let's go ahead and add a new student. All we really want to do in this case is just clearing a bunch of cells, right? So what cells do we want to clear? I want to clear all these cells. I'm going to bring this up here so we can see both at the same time. And then I'm going to bring this down here. So we're going to focus again on the student screen. So with, in this case, we don't need to do with because it's just a little bit. So with, actually why not? With students, makes it more clear. Again, dot, make sure your IntelliSense is working. I want to clear some cells out. So what cells do I want to clear out? Dot range for new students all the way, let's see, start out with F3. Want to clear that out, the selected student. We won't need that. Also F7, we need to do that. And then H9 and J9. So F9, J9. But if we look here, and we look at the address here, we see that it's F9 all the way through H9. So we need to add that in. F9 all the way through H9, going all the way. So through H9. Okay, good. So we've got that. Now what else do we want? So we want to make sure that we've covered all those because it's a merged cell. So once we do that, we also want J9. Then we want F11. Then we want H11. Then, of course, we want J11. That's going to clear out that zip code. Next up, we want, again, F13, the row below, H13, which will be for our email. And then lastly, we want for our phone number, it's going to be J13, making sure those. Next up, again, the row below, again, we're going to focus on, let's bring that down here so we can see everything and scroll up. Okay, we only need to do this once. So, it's kind of long, but we only need to do once. Next up, on the row 15, we're going to focus on F15, then again, H15 and also J15. You can also do things like copy and paste these if they're all consistent, right? And then just change the number. So next time we just have to update the number to 17 here. So we just change it to 17, and then 19 again is the same. And then that's it. Then one more actually. So F15, then just change this to 19 here, 19. And then that last one, 19. But 21 is they're going to be formulas, so we don't need to do that. But we do need to change that to K. We need K19, which is going to be our file path. So K19 is going to be our picture file path. Okay, and then not value, but we want to actually clear the contents out. So dot clear contents. That's going to clear all the values between that. Okay, so once we have a new student, we also want to display certain groups. So what do I mean by that? I want to notice the existing group. I want to hide that, and I want to show new student group. There's certain buttons that we can do. So doing that, so dot shapes, and then existing student group, I want to hide that. Dot visible equals false, right? We're going to hide it. Hide existing student group. Okay, but I want to display the new one. So we can just copy that here, and then just change the name, and then change that reference there. So this one's going to be new student group, new, and instead of false, we want to show it true. So C true. It's going to show new group. Okay. Also, what I want to do for new, in case there's any picture, we're going to add a picture here, but I want to delete any picture that might be there because if we're adding a new student, so we can delete it because we have the file path. So, but if it doesn't exist, it's going to create an error. So we do on error resume next in case there's. So again, dot shapes, we're going to give it always a name, student pick dot delete, right? We can just delete it because it's a brand new student, right? We got the file path, so we can create it again. And then on error, go to 0 to resume. And then also what I want to do is I want to make sure when they click new student, I want to make sure that general info tab is displayed, right? So let's run the macro to do just that. Student, again, in lowercase, just to make sure, student, general tab, and then of course it's called general info. We'll make sure it changes to capitals when we go. So student general info changes. So that's going to run the macro to view general info tab. Okay, and sub, that looks pretty good. Now, don't forget, let's just check our ranges because we have a lot of ranges there. It's easy to make an error when you do it with a comma, F9, J9, F9. Taking a look at this, just double checking. Also, before you run any macros to clear the contents, very, very, very important. Save your work either here or up here. Save your work. Why do we do that? Because if I've made a mistake and I clear everything out, I'm gonna have to redo it a lot. It's gonna be, or save, or don't save any changes. So make sure you do that. And now what I wanna do is I wanna take this specific macro and assign it to this button. So how do we do that? We just right click here. Well, not only the button, but the macro itself, holding down the control, clicking that, and click assign macro. Student, add new, that's the one I want. Click OK. Again, clicking on new student, everything's cleared out. It looks right, and we didn't have any data in here, but it looks just right. Perfect. So we got everything in here. Now let's focus on saving a student. This is going to be much easier. So let's go ahead and save the student. That's the next. Save or update is the same one. But to do that, what I need to do is I need to add some information in so we know what row. We've got a student database here. What I'd like to do is I'd like to have a named range for our student IDs. For example, if I had 1, 2, 3 here for student IDs, let's just center that so it looks a little bit nice so we can see that. And then what I want to do is create a named range, but I want a dynamic. So I want a dynamic named range. So how do we do that? Okay, so we can do that into formulas, name manager, and click new. and I want to do something called, I want to call it student and then underscore ID. Then it's going to be an offset. So I'm going to do equals, and I'm going to start with the header. Always start with the header in case there's no data. Comma, but in actuality, we want to really start out with the row below. So 1, comma, comma, count A. We need to count how many should it go. So it's going to, again, start at the header, go all the way down, but to a large number. Let's go 9999. Okay, then I want to count that, but I don't want to count the header. So I want to subtract 1. But we include the header because if there's no data, it'll create an error. Then I want to do one column, just one column. We're going to use the tab key, tabbing out. We're going to tab back in and messed up. That's okay. It happens. Student ID. Forgot the most important part, offset, right? We're offsetting this. It's got to be offset. Got ahead of myself. Offset. Okay, tab out, tab in. Perfect. You see those dancing outs around the formula? Perfect. That's what we want. So that way it automatically knows. Okay, so click OK, and we're going to do more, right? I'm going to copy this, Control C. I want this student name. I want 2 more actually. Click OK. Now I want student name. So student and then names, and then I want to paste that in, paste the one we just had. But where's names going to be? Our names are going to be located here under V, right? So I want to just change this to V. We can count the same cells, but we're going to start in V. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Notice it's 3 because we have 3 units. As soon as we remove those, it'll be fine. Click OK. I want even one more. I want to know that not only names, I want a sorted list of names. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to do called student, and then names, and then sorted. All right, let's do underscore, so it's sorted. Because there I want another list called sorted. And I'm going to paste that in there too. But this time we're going to change it to, let's go with AA. Let's go with AA, right? I want a sorted list of names. So AA, I'm just going to use it. We're going to use an advanced filter so that we can then run it. So what is that going to look like? Well, it's going to look like nothing right now because there's no data in there. But I'm really going to start it off on, I want to start off on row, let's say row 2. So let's do that. Let's change this because I want to start it off here and here and here. So 2 is where we're going to have it on. So let's tab out of that, tab into that. Okay, good. That's what I want. We're just counting them. Perfect. So it's going to actually show us their data. So what we're going to do is click OK, and then click, we need to make an update on OK. So I want to have our students sorted list here. Students, not Z, but AA. Students sorted. So how can we do that? Well, what I want is the full name, right? I want the full name, but I want it sorted. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it right in here. So I want that full name to show up here. This is going to be our results, sorted names. So then what we're going to do is run an advanced filter. All the names here, we're going to sort them here so that our drop-down list can include sorted names. It's going to be great. Okay, but it's going to be based on some criteria, right? I want to make sure if there's that it's not empty, that first name is not empty, because we may want to clear it out. But we'll go over that. So I'm just going to copy that here, and I'll paste it just right here. Actually, I'll do it right here. Paste it. This is called our criteria. We want to make sure that first name is not empty. That way, if we delete or clear students, we can keep the ID, but we can still have our information show up, and we can have a sort of limited list, for so to speak, kind of a limited list. Okay, good. So that we've got that. I'll just color that and actually border it, put a border around it so we can see criteria, and then our sorted names. This is going to be our sorted names. So we have lots of lists going to help us. Why is that important? Our sorted names are going to go in here. I want a student sorted name. That's what we're going to do. So let's do that right now. Data validation. We want a list, and we want what list want? We can use F3, and we can say sorted names here because I want the list of sorted names alphabetically. Okay. So we can have, there's no data in here, so of course it's an error, but as soon as we have data, it will be there available to us. Perfect. What do I mean by that? Let's just take a look here. So we're going to have it. So as soon as we add a name in here, we have it here. And then what we'll do is I'll run a criteria and bring in those names and sort them accordingly through VBA. All right, so let's go focus on the add new, and then I'm going to let you go as soon as we get a few of these macros done, just so we can see how we save it, because it's relatively easy. We're going to focus on with students, right? I want that. With students, with our students sheet, that's our student sheet, students dot, okay, we got the right sheet name. And what I want to do is I want to differentiate between a new student and an existing student. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, the best way to do that is to determine what is the selected student, right? If there's a student here, we know it's selected. We know it's an existing student. If it's a new student, this will be blank. But there's a few other ways to do it to make sure. So the best way we can do that is to have some information in our hidden columns here. So what do I want? Well, I have a selected column, but what else do I want? I want to know perhaps the student row based on the ID. I want to know the ID here. Student ID and the balance. This information is not going to be editable, so I'm going to change the color on that back to this default color here. Actually, let's go with the darker gray here. We want the actual color of the background. So dropping this down here, let's drop it. Let's pin it for a second, and then we'll go, which is the second color here. That's the one I want. Okay, so if the student ID is 1, I want to know what row that is based on. I want to know what row here. It's actually row 4, right? It's the first one. So how do we do that? We can do that with a formula. So we're going to call this the selected, call this the student row based on the ID, because we're going to have another row based on the name. So we're going to expand that a little bit. And so how do we do that? We're going to base it on a formula, equals if_, and I'm basing it on a match formula. What are we matching? We're looking up the student ID. And what are we basing it on? The student named range student ID. We want an exact match. But also I want to add 3 because the first one starts in row 4. Remember, so I'm going to add 3, comma. But what if there's an error? If there's an error, I want it to show blank. Okay, good. So row 4. So look, student ID is row 4. If I change that to 2, it's going to go to 5. That's exactly what I want. If it's a brand new student, this will be empty and it's going to show no student ID. That's how I can differentiate between that. I want more though, more than just the student row. I want to know the next student ID. What is the next student ID? When we add a new one, we need to do that. Next student ID. We can base that on a match formula, but I also want to wrap that on if_, too. Equals if_, I also want to use a max formula, max the student IDs. So the maximum of all of them, currently it's 3 plus 1, that'll give us 4 currently. But what if there's an error? There would be an error if there's no data at all. So if there's no data, I want to start it off on the first possible student ID, which is 1. Close that up. Okay, so it's 4. Perfect. That's just what I want. So the next student ID is 4. What else? I want to also know the student row based on the name, right? A student row based on the name. So for example, if our student row, Fred Fredders, right? Okay, so if I copy that and I paste the values in here, right? Well, I want Fred Fredders. I want that full name in here, right? So how do I get that? I also want it based on the sorted name. So what does that mean? When they select a student here, Fred Fredders, I want to know what row it is based on the name. Here we have it based on the ID, but I want another one based on the name. So again, we can do that. So the student, let's call this student row based on the name. Okay, so we have student row based on the ID and based on the name. We have 2 of those. So again, we're going to use a match formula. So also on if_, equals if_, matching it. But what are we matching? We're looking up, in this case, I'm looking up this one, and I'm basing it on the student name. So the lookup array is based on the student names. And then 0 plus 3, again, plus 3, comma, what if it's an error? Then I don't want to show anything. Okay, 4, that's just what I want. So now we've got, so that way when you make a selection here, automatically we know if this is blank, it's an incorrect selection, but if it's correct, then we'll show it. Good, so let's go ahead and color these accordingly just so we can differentiate them between the other cells. Give it the yellow and the border around it. Okay, saving our work. Now we're ready. Now I'm ready because I need to know if this is blank, it's a new student. So we're going to use that to differentiate. So inside our macro, that's going to help us run out. First of all, I want to make sure that if they're trying to save the student, I want to make sure that there's at least a first name and last name. Those are required. So if F7 or H7 is empty, then what we want to do is let the user know to please put those in. So if .range F7.value equals empty, or .range H7 equals empty, H7 equals empty, then what do I want to do? Message box, let the user know. Please make sure to add student first name and last name. Okay, perfect. Last name. Okay, good. And then exit sub. There's nothing we can do unless they've added that information. End if. Perfect. Okay, let's take a look at that. Let's make sure that's our if value is empty or H70 value is empty. then let the user know, right? We got to have values both in F7 and H7. Okay, continuing on. So once we have that and we know this required, we can then determine, I need to know if it's new or existing. Check, we're using the same macro to update and to save new. Check for existing or new student. So if, remember, we know that because we're going to know if, of course, B7 is empty, we know it is a new student. So we can do that. If .range B7.value equals empty, then new student, else existing student, and then and if. Perfect. So we've got that. So we need to do just a few different things if it's a new student. So if it's a new student, I want to make sure that we define the student rows. We've already defined this on student row. It's equal to, again, it's going to be based on the student database. I want to know the first available row here based on, again, row here based on column A. When we delete this information, which I want to do now, then the first available row is going to be 4, right? So let's go ahead and put that in right now. So it's going to be inside the database here, last A and XL row. This is the last row with a value right here, but we want to add one. So +1, that's going to get us 4. So we know the student row. I also want to put in the student ID, right? We know the student ID. How do we know? Because we know the next student ID is 1. I just deleted the data. That's why this changed to 1. So B9, I'm going to take this value and I'm going to put it in 2 places. I'm going to put it in J7 and I'm going to put it right here inside the first one, A4. So we're going to put that in there. So within VBA, we're going to do both of those things. So again, based on the student database dot range A and the student row dot value equals what? It equals B, right? B again, B9. B9 is the next one. So let's put that in there. Dot range B9. But before that, I want to do one thing. Let's call this student ID. Before that, I want to add it into I want to put J7 is going to equal whatever's in B9. So let's just write that up right now. J7 is going to equal to B9. So let's copy this here, and then we'll put in dot range J7 dot value equals whatever's in B9, also student. So that student ID is going to go in 2 different places. Okay, so once we have that, we can then go ahead and add it up. So I also want to make sure that we're pasting the formula in, right? That formula also needs to be pasted in. What is that formula? That's in column V. That's only for new students because once it's in there. So I want to take whatever formula is in here, V, and I want to paste it right in here. So I'm going to do just that. So whatever's in V1. So let's copy V1 and then paste it in. So again, student database, let's just copy this here so we don't have to retype it. Change it to V. It's going to be V1 dot copy. We're going to, let's add the parentheses, dot copy. And then what I want to do, I want to paste it directly inside whatever the row is. So it's going to be in, again, student database, but this time in V and the student row dot paste special and then paste formulas, right? XL paste formulas here, one below, pasting that formula in, and then we can turn off the cut copy mode. So application dot cut copy mode equals false. That turns off those dancing ants that we don't want to see. Okay, so once we have that, that's it. That's all we need to do for the new students. But what about the existing? Well, if it's an existing student, all we need to do is grab that row. So where is that row located? That row is located in, of course, B7. So we can just copy this here and then just put equals and then B7. So for existing, it's going to be B7, existing student row. Good. So now that we have all of that, we can then continue on. So now all we need to do is save it. So how are we going to do that? So what I want to do is run a loop. Let's say I want to run it all the way to, let's say here, equals column. What column is this? 21. So I'm going to run a loop. What do I mean by that? I'm going to go from, we already have the student ID. We just placed here. So I'm going to run a loop from B, column 2, all the way to 21. This is where data mapping comes in handy. And I'm going to look in whatever's in F7 here, F7, and I'm going to place it directly inside whatever row is here. I'm going to look in H7 on the students and place it here. F9 and place it here. So that's all so I just need to run a loop. I know the row, I know the column because we're running the loop. So let's write that up right now. So student database dot cells. We're using cells because both the column and the row are variables. So cells student row, comma, student column dot value equals what? Equals dot range. And then what's that cell? Where's that cell located? Cell's located in row 1 in the student database. So student database dot cells row 1 and the student column dot value, okay, equals that. So that's that's all we need. And then we're going to close out. So we do that, but we need to wrap that in a loop, right? For the student column equals 2 to 21. Okay, so we then close our loop. Then we just need to close our loop. So next student column. Perfect. So let's take a look at that. So excellent. So also we need to update our button sets, right? So that means it's now an existing student. It's no longer a new student. So we just need to update the button sets accordingly. All right, so let's take a look at that. So here all we need to do is just take these two here and reverse them. It's now in existing. So I'm going to copy this down here. Shapes existing students. It's true, right? Now we want to show this. See, true. We want to change this to show. And the other one to hide because it's no longer new. Show this one. And then hide the new groups. No longer new, so we can now hide that button set. Hide. And then false. Okay, so what else do we want to do? Now that I've saved the student, I want to make sure that that student name appears here located in F3 so that it appears. So we can do that, but I need to make sure that it appears exactly the way we want it. I also want to determine, so when I make a change here, I want to load the student, but I don't want to load the student when VBA is making the change. In other words, if we just added a new student, I want to update this. But that type of change I don't want. I need to differentiate between the type of change where the user makes a change and VBA makes a change. So what we do is we set a specific cell called student load. So I'm going to call the student load so we can differentiate between those two changes. Make this false. Again, use our color here so we can update it so we know that it's an admin and then the borders around there. Okay, so now that we've got that, I want to make B3 to true so that when VBA makes a change, it doesn't trigger anything. And of course, when B3, change it back to false. So let's do that right now inside the code. So we can let's write it up here. So dot range B3 dot value equals true. Set student load to true. And then we're going to change it right back to false after we make a small change. So I'm going to paste that down here, skip a row, change it to false, set to false. Okay, so but in between there, what I want to do is I want to update F3. So dot range F3 dot value is equal to what? Well, it's equal to the net calculated name that we had, right? So basically whatever's on V and that row. So let's write that up. So it's equal to V in that row, right? So right here, basically right here, that's what it's going to equal. That first name, last name, or last name, first name equals V. So we just paste that in here, dot value, okay? So adds student full name. Perfect. Okay, so that's going to add that full name to there. So now we've got it there based on last name, or first name, last name. Nice, but there's one more thing I have to do. Remember, this list here is sorted list. I need to update this list. So I need to write a macro that's going to update this list, right? Because I want it sorted. So I want to bring all the names here into this here, and then I want to sort it, right? The full name, I want to sort that. So how can we do that? Well, we can do that with just an advanced filter macro. So let's write that now because I think that's really important. And I have it down here. So then that's perfect. Then I'm going to let you go because I want to show you that. And then the next week, we're going to do load and a whole lot more. Okay, so let's write this now. So I want to sort those names. So we're going to focus on the student database. So with student database, check that out, make sure it's right. Okay, what are we going to do? The first thing what I want to do is I want to determine the last student row. The last student row is equal to, of course, A99 and XLApp.row. That's going to give us the last row of the students. Once we have that, I also want to clear out any type of values inside. I want to make sure it's all cleared out. Anything that's here, cleared out because we're going to add a brand new list. So AA3 all the way and down, let's clear that out. So dot range AA3 through AA9999, and then clear those contents out. Dot clear contents. clear any previous results. Okay. Once we have that, we are ready to run our advanced filter. So dot range, let's just write out dot range. What's the advanced filter? It is, let's go ahead and I'm going to automate that just to make it quick. Add advanced filter, because I've also got that on that. And then of course I'm going to walk you through every step. So it just keeps from typing. So we're going to start out on A3. A3 is our header. It's going to go all the way to V here, column V. Change that to V. And I want to make sure that our first names are not blank. So it's going to, our criteria is going to be Y2 through Y3. And I'll update that. Y2 through Y3. That's our criteria, right? We're going to copy it. We're going to copy it to another location, our criteria range, making sure the first name is not blank. And where do we want those results to go? I want those results to go directly in AA2. AA2 is where we're going to go, or the results are going to go. So I'm going to change this to AA2. That's all I want. Okay, clearing this out. Okay, and unique equals true. Once I have that, then what I want to do is I want to determine the last row of the results, right? So let's do that. Getting the last results row. So the last result row is equal to, again, it's in this case, it's AA. So our A column A. It's going to get us the last row of all of our results. And then what I want to do is determine if for some reason that's less than 4, right? If we only have one name here, if it's less than 4, we can skip the sort, right? We only need it if we have more than one. So let's run a check. If last result row is less than 4, then skip sort. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to write skip sort and then a colon. So that's going to let us go to, then sure, it should say go to skip sort. Go to, all right, skip sort. So, but we're going to focus on the sort now. So what are we doing with dot sort? We're going to do some things. The first thing I want to clear any sorts, sort fields dot clear in case there's any sorts. Clearing those, then what I want to do is I want to add a key. So dot sort fields dot add key. Add a key, okay, add. And then what is that key here? That key we're going to add in is exactly A3. So let's go ahead and write that right now. Add, and then the key is going to be colon equal to student. I got to call out the database again because now we're within the with sort. Database dot range AA3, not A3, A3, right? That's the first value in there. So, all right, once we have that, A3, and then I want to do sort on. What are we sorting on? This is going to be colon equals to, we're sorting on values. So XL sort on values. Then order, I'm going to set the order. Order is going to be ascending, right? Ascending, A going on A. So order is going to be equal to XL ascending, A ascending. Okay, next up, we want a data option. Data option, what option is that? Let's put that right. Option colon is equal to XL sort normal. Okay, great. We have that. But now I want to set the range. Dot set the range. What is the entire range? And this is going to start with AA3. So again, students database dot range AA3 all the way through AA and the last result row. Okay, good. And then the last thing is dot apply. Okay, so once we have the apply, let's take a look. So then end with, let's get rid of the spaces up here, and with, and okay, perfect. And the skip sort is down here because in case there's no sort. Okay, let's go ahead and run that macro. It's going to skip it, right? Because I'm going to have to add another name in there. Just run to see if there's any. Last transaction row. This should be last, of course. That should be last student row because that's the one we did. That was automated. Last student row. We have just that, not the transaction that was just automated. Okay, and then students database, right? That's no S on the end of that. Got to chuckle that. And there we go. Perfect. Let's continue on that. And then dot apply, not dot application. Dot apply. Continuing on, lots of errors, fun. Okay. Yep, that's fine. 2 rows, no problem. We don't have any data in there, so it's fine. Okay, so what we can do in this case, in case there's no data, let's do this. If the last student row is less than 4, then skip sort. Perfect. Okay, so now in case there's no data, now let's run it again. Run it again. Perfect. Okay, skip sort, go to. Keep forgetting the go to. Go to, skip sort, go to. Okay. It's not a macro. If it's a macro, we could do it. Okay, good. So we've got that. Now we're going to add some data and we're going to see how it works. Perfect. Okay, so let's just go ahead, and I'm not going to add all the data because it would take a lot of time. So let's add some data. Fred, and then Fredders. We'll check for errors, and then we're going to save that student. So I'm going to click on here. I'm going to hold down the control. Then I'm going to assign the macro, and then it's going to be called student save and update. Click OK, and we'll just put an address. Make sure, and then what we'll do is we'll click save. First, save our work right before we run the macro. Save the student. Okay, the buttons look good. Let's take a look in here, and we got to get the row updated there. The row. Let's check on the row there, and then we'll be okay. All right, let's update that. Go back into students, clearing that out. New student, right? New student. What we need to make sure is we clear J. It's very important that we clear J7 as well. So and the new student, we need to clear that. J7's got to be clear too. So we need to add that. I forgot that J7. I want to clear that student ID out. Okay. And let's go ahead and run that again. Student ID. Obviously, you don't want it on row 12, so we'll clear that out. But everything worked other than the row. We want to make sure that first row available is 4. We had some data there. So let's take a look here. Adding that in here. And then, of course, cancel new. We're going to add that in. Save it. We also want to make sure to clear out H7. Right? We missed that there. H7, we sure did. F7, right? H7, we did. H7. Okay, good. So that's going to help us. Continuing on, saving our work. And now we'll go ahead and we'll add Fred. And then Fredders. Okay, we want to make sure the next student ID looks good. Select the table column is good. Let's check that. There we go. We need to add that in. ID card. Okay, good. So we missed something up. We got to set F5. I want to make sure that we're setting something up here. So the student row, we need to fix that. Let's go ahead and here. Inside the save or update, the student row, this is the first available row, but that's got to be based on the student database, not based on the student database. So let's update that because we have the wrong row. Student database is the one that we want to fix there. So reset that, save it. Okay, let's take a look at that. So we're going to save it, Fredders, save the student. Let's take a look in the student database. We got the row, we got the full name. Perfect. Okay, I like the way that looks. That looks really good. So we've got all that. Everything looks good, but the only thing we left to do is I want to put that full name located in A and run that macro. So all we need to do, we already created this sort name. So all I need to do is take that macro and then copy that macro here and place that in so that it runs automatically when we save or update a student. So students, then because update is going to be the same macro as save. So all I need to do is hold down the control, right click that, assign the macro, student save and update. Click OK and click update. Now we're going to take a look at that. Now we've got the available on there. All right, good, good, good. Student database. Now we've got Fredders here. Of course, there's only one name. Let's add one more and make sure they're sorted appropriately. So we're going to go down here, clicking on new student. Let's just click. I got to fix that. There's an issue there. Abe, let's just call it Lincoln. Okay, and then save that student. All right, let's take a look at that. Now let's click on that. Okay, we got to fix that there. We need the sorting's got to work. Going to make sure that. But oh, Lincoln Abe, it's looking perfect. Sorted based on last name. I want to check one more thing here. Back in the admin, that's exactly right. Let's check last name. I want to go with first name, last name, and then go back into students and resort it again. What we'll do is we will resort it, save and update that, and check that our Abe Lincoln and Fredders. Now it is sorted alphabetically based on the first name. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Fantastic. It's been a really, really great training. We've covered a lot. We've got a lot more to cover. I want to hear from you. I want to know your suggestions, your ideas, your comments. Am I missing something? This is not necessarily my trade. I haven't run a school before, so I don't know every detail. I would love to know your ideas. I got so many, but there's a lot to create, so I cannot wait. We've got a lot to cover. What do I have in store for this? Well, we've got a lot. I've got school information, admin, rooms, location, terms, student defaults, teacher defaults. It's going to go in the admin. General students, general info, payment history, enrolled classes, teachers, salary, payroll, classes. I've got scheduling, day and month, advanced, expandable to show students, print and email, notifications, possible SMS and email, quiz generator, send quizzes, grade level, scoring terms, expenses, automated amounts, types, and a dashboard attendance. So we've got a ton to do on this. It's going to be an incredible application. The only way that I can do these is with your support. And that could be anything from simply sharing and liking or commenting, or perhaps grabbing one of our applications or courses, that'll really help us out. In fact, I've got 175 applications for just $66. In fact, that's only 37 cents per application. That would help us out a lot. Thanks so much. We will see you next week for part 2. I can't wait to hear your feedback. Thanks so much. We'll see you then.